of education in AI is the end of the one-size-fits-all model. Imagine a classroom where every child has a personal tutor that understands their unique pace. We're seeing adaptive models that don't just grade a student and move on, but help a student identify what they struggle with and focus the tutoring and lessons on addressing that gap in real time. And for all of us here who are parents, I know even just among my two, they have two very different styles of learning. So imagining a teacher who can team with AI to customize learning to a classroom as large as this one, to enable everybody to learn in the way that works best for them. AI is also a miracle for students with disabilities. We can now perform universal screening for dyslexia using AI speech recognition, identifying at-risk readers in hours rather than months. AI-powered image-to-text tools and live captioning provide equitable access to students who were previously marginalized by traditional formats. And then for district leaders who have responsibility for many children and many students, AI can provide a clearer picture of what's really working. It can analyze student performance and attendance patterns to highlight hidden disparities, allowing administrators to allocate budgets and interventions with precision to ensure resources are spent on the children who need it most. So when we think about AI in education, we focus first on schools. But there's also AI for education of individuals as they're getting trained for their first roles. And nowhere is that shift more critical than in job training, particularly in medicine. I was talking with the CEO of Johns Hopkins recently, one of the largest health systems in the US, and he described how AI is transforming the healthcare system from everything to detecting cancer in images to ensuring that a doctor in a room, AI can generate notes so the doctor spends most of their time engaging with the patient. And indeed, the notes are better, rather than a harried, busy doctor that's captured everything that went on in that interaction. So we're seeing AI identifying early stage cancer in imaging, spotting patterns invisible even to the most seasoned human eye. And we need to consider how training of doctors and nurses allow them to team with this knowledge most effectively. And in that new curriculum, we shouldn't be training doctors to compete with the AI, but instead to orchestrate it, teaching them to audit the model's logic while focusing their human energy on complex decision-making. In the philosophy range, AI can also deepen our ties to the past, to our traditions, and the learnings of our ancestors, something that I see is very rich here in India. You know, as I drove from the airport early this morning, I was talking to my husband back in the United States, and he commented to me that he had used AI to better understand a 2nd century Talmudic study about how gold was melted and logarithms. And he had taken text in Hebrew and Aramaic that he couldn't understand, even in translation, and used AI to help him understand the math as it was understood 2,000 years ago. Indeed, the Talmud is not a static book. It's a hyperlinked network of questions, debates, and logic that span centuries. I believe, and I hope I pronounce this correctly, like the Smriti, Dharmashastras, and Mimasas of this tradition. It's traditionally studied with a chavruta, a study partner, who challenges your reasoning and sharpens your mind. So one can see AI as a potential digital chavruta for all of us as we study complex reasoning in our traditions over thousands or hundreds of years. It can challenge a student's assumptions, push them to articulate their thoughts more clearly, and offer a dialectic approach to learning that was previously only available to people with the most elite resources. This link to ancient learning traditions reminds us that technology is merely a new way to fulfill an old human need, the pursuit of truth. With all the promise, we must be clear-eyed about the risks. And indeed, the greatest danger in AI is unvalidated fact. We know about the hallucination problem. that large language models are designed to be persuasive, not necessarily truthful. When a student uses an AI that hasn't been validated against a verified curriculum, they risk learning hallucinations, entirely fabricated information presented with absolute confidence. There's also a risk that excessive reliance on AI could lead to a shrinking of critical thinking. If a student uses AI to bypass the productive struggles, the work that often is at the root of good learning, of formulating an idea, they miss the chance to build the mental muscles of independent thought. And indeed, AI trained on vast amounts of social media often lacks ways to validate against facts. So today there are new efforts focused on validating the output of language models against facts, and they fall into three categories: verification frameworks, nonprofit projects, and technical grounding. For the first, large-scale organizations are building truth infrastructure. Partnership on AI, for example, is leading an effort to create a validated, open evaluation repository, allowing developers to benchmark their models against verified human-vetted data. What I found particularly interesting was a study published in the journal Science, which suggested that large language models could be helpful in reducing a problem we are grappling with in the United States, which is the rise of conspiracies and of people who believe in them. So in this study, it found that models were remarkably successful at reducing belief in conspiracy theories, challenging the long-held psychological need hypothesis, which suggests that such beliefs could be immune to logic. Researchers engaged over 2,000 people who identified as believing in a conspiracy. Such things as, in the United States, who killed John F. Kennedy? And they engaged in personalized, evidence-based dialogue with a custom-built GPT-4 model. Unlike human debunkers, who sometimes lost patience or got angry or emotional, these engagements, and they went on back and forth for three rounds, were actually successful. They showed a 20% average reduction in conspiracy beliefs that persisted for months, demonstrating that when presented with rigorous arguments and logical arguments, even people who really believed in conspiracies could be swayed. A very hopeful approach to potentially engaging people and helping us bridge divides in thinking. So I want to close with some interesting global success stories, and of course I'll start with India. India has an effort to identify early dropouts, to allow teachers to intervene early to potentially prevent students from dropping out when they face significant challenges in learning or at home. I found India's tuberculosis initiative particularly exciting, a powerful local example of using AI to screen for tuberculosis in rural areas. By analyzing chest x-rays with AI, health workers can identify potential cases in minutes, bringing life-saving care to communities where specialized radiologists are often a distance away. But what's most exciting is to think about, from an education perspective, it gave frontline technicians the skills of an advanced specialist wherever they were. Another example is Finland, that uses AI in 50% of its schools for feedback on math and programming. The US, where Camigo helps students with tutoring. And China, where Squirrel AI's adaptive learning has been helpful in customizing learning to students' particular gaps in knowledge. As we deploy these tools in the United States, one issue we're grappling with is the response sometimes from teachers' unions and some education advocates who have often approached us in a largely defensive way, focusing on protection of jobs, of teachers, and viewing automation as a threat to job security. We see this, for example, today in the US in calls for mandatory bargaining over AI and resistance to any tool that might replace a human task. Some advocates cite privacy as a key need, which indeed must need to be addressed. And I would suggest that the best way to address this is really to focus on outcomes in learning for children, having transparency and data to show which kinds of models truly assist children in learning, in retaining knowledge, and in particularly different types of students may have different styles of learning, or may be grappling with learning disabilities. And similarly, we must ensure that our job training programs are updated to not reflect the jobs of today, but the jobs that will be available tomorrow and the day after, incorporating AI and teaming with AI. So in conclusion, a call to action with this esteemed group. The goal of AI in education is to automate the mundane, to liberate learning. So to the leaders and innovators here today, our task is to build a sovereign tech stack for education that is as safe as it is smart. We must prioritize safe and trusted AI, ensuring that every child from a rural village to a large city is learning from a foundation of truth. And let's ensure that the AI generation, I admit, of which my 18-month-old grandson is a start, is the most curious, most critical thinking, and most human-centric generation we have ever produced. What an honor to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to hearing the rest of the discussion today. Thank you.
A safe and trusted AI for the future generation and today's. I'm glad you mentioned the Smritis. So incidentally, in our Shruti tradition, which is the other tradition in the Vedas, there's a little shlok, a little saying which says, Asato ma sadgamaya, tamso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityur ma amritam gamaya, which means that may I be led from reality to from unreality to reality, from darkness to truth, and may that lead me towards realization. That's our hope from AI as well. Thank you so much. Now I invite another esteemed guest, Ambassador Taranjeet Singh Sandhuji, to please make his remarks.
And Newburger, Satish Ji, Professor K.K. Agarwal, Professor Badri Narayan, my young friend Chetan Agarwal, very much representing the topic. Of course, CPRG for hosting us here, distinguished guests, and so many young friends here. Before I begin, I just want to take a minute and explain to you the importance of AND. You know, people of my age, senior citizens who are technology challenged, often ask their children, you know, how to do this. I mean, whether it's the phone or iPhone, etc., etc. When President Biden used to hit technology wall, he would call and he would say, and how do you do this? That's her importance. Education reform, we are not merely talking about classrooms. We are discussing demographic destiny. With one of the world's youngest populations, our education system is not only a domestic priority, but a strategic instrument, shaping India's role in the international order. Today's AI presents us with a paradox. It is disruptive, yet enabling. It is complex, yet democratizing. And perhaps most importantly, it is global in architecture, but local in impact. Traditionally, education systems were designed for uniformity. One teacher, one textbook, one curriculum, many students. Artificial intelligence is changing this paradigm. AI-driven platforms can now analyze how students learn, not just what they learn. For example, some Indian learning platforms track problem-solving approaches, response times, and hesitation patterns to understand conceptual gaps and personalize instruction. This signals a shift from mass education to precision education. Globally, we see similar transformations. AI tutors used in language learning platforms now stimulate conversational feedbacks at scale, enabling millions of learners to practice skills interactively. The lesson is clear. AI does not replace teachers, it augments their reach. One of India's most remarkable contributions to global education technology is not just innovation, it is inclusive innovation. Consider rural India. Platforms designed for rural learners now use AI to create personalized learning paths, connect students with mentors, and enable collaborative knowledge networks that overcome geographic barriers. In some states, solar-powered AI teaching pods have been introduced in remote schools so students can attend classes even in regions without reliable electricity. In tribal schools, AI-enabled classrooms are delivering lessons in regional languages such as Odia and Santali, while embedding local culture into academic content. These examples demonstrate something profound. Technology succeeds when it respects context. India is now moving from isolated innovation to systemic integration. A recent national rollout will introduce AI-powered grading systems across more than 3,000 schools and universities, ensuring scalable yet academically sound deployment. Kerala has launched a statewide AI-enabled coaching platform serving roughly 800,000 public school students with personalized study plans based on performance data. At the policy level, initiatives such as AI literacy programs aim to prepare millions of Indians from diverse educational backgrounds to understand and use AI technologies. Such efforts reflect a fundamental principle of public policy. Technology adoption must be accompanied by capacity building. Perhaps the most compelling case for AI in education is its ability to reduce inequality. In one municipal school in Ghaziabad, an AI and digital lab was introduced for 238 girls, helping students gain early exposure to advanced tools and strengthening confidence in STEM fields. For visually impaired learners in rural Karnataka, AI-powered text-to-speech systems provide access to digital content in local languages. India has also launched an AI-based translator supporting tribal languages such as Gondi and Santali, preserving linguistic heritage while expanding educational access. These initiatives show, when designed responsibly, AI is not merely a technological tool, it becomes a social instrument. A frequent concern is whether AI will diminish the role of teachers. Evidence suggests the opposite. In Karnataka government schools, AI-assisted lesson planning systems reduced teachers' administrative workload, improved classroom preparation, and allowed educators to focus more on academics and student engagement. In other words, AI works best when it is not the teacher, but the teacher's assistant. The future classroom is not human versus machine. It is human plus machine. Globally, countries that are leading in AI education integration share three common characteristics. First, they treat data governance as foundational infrastructure. Second, they prioritize teacher training alongside technology adoption. Third, they align education policy with workforce strategy. For instance, real-time translation tools in classrooms abroad are enabling multilingual learning environments, especially where international students study together. India, with its linguistic diversity, is uniquely positioned to benefit from similar approaches. We often discuss AI in terms of economic competitiveness, but AI-enabled education is equally about strategic capability. A country's technology strength depends not only on its engineers, but on its citizens' digital literacy. If AI is the electricity of 21st century, education is the power grid. In India's National Education Policy 2020, it explicitly positions artificial intelligence as a foundational pillar of future education, calling it for its integration across all levels from early schooling to higher education to build digital literacy, computation thinking and industry-ready skills, while also establishing institutional mechanisms and specialized programs to support AI research, training and ethical awareness. While the opportunities are significant, prudence requires us to address challenges. Three deserve particular attention. Educational data must be protected with the same seriousness as financial data. AI systems must reflect India's diversity rather than replicate existing inequalities. Technology must support curiosity, not replace it. Responsible deployment, therefore, must be guided by ethical frameworks, transparent standards, and institutional oversight. From a diplomatic standpoint, AI-enabled education also opens new avenues for international cooperation. Educational data sets, multilingual learning models, and digital curriculum tools can become instruments of soft power. Nations that develop inclusive and ethical education technologies will shape global norms. India's experience, especially in scaling solutions for low-resource environments, positions it as a natural leader in this domain. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Chetan and CPRG, for giving me this opportunity this morning. My co-panelists and co-worker, Dr. Talangi Singh and Professor PadhAI2.0, and so many great learning friends, if I have to name this and so many others. It's a pleasure. Coming to the subject, and I see many youngsters here, so pardon me if I sort of skip the elders and talk to the youngsters, because I think that's important. My dear students, don't think AI is something which has come from like this and just for the noon. AI is a continuum according to me. See, I personally feel it as a time which tells us that you change your system. Education has always been and can only be one-to-one exercise in the real sense of the word. There is no mechanism on earth like health. I mean, a doctor cannot treat the entire hospital by a lecture or by one medicine to all. It has to be individualized. Similarly, education also had to be individualized in the real sense of the word. If I talk about our Indian ancient system, which we used to call Gurukul system, the teacher never decided student has come for what learning and student never decided what for he has gone to the book. They had just gone for education, and rest was between the teacher and the student as to what he will be best at. And that is the real education. Unfortunately, with the massification of education, this system got collapsed. We got, you must study this plus this plus this. You must study from this time to this time. You must study in the boundary walls of this hall. And so many constraints came into the education system, maybe because of necessity. But in this process, we forgotten the philosophy of education, and we started believing very strongly everybody should do same well in mathematics, same good in physics, same good in Sanskrit, same good in philosophy, otherwise you're no good. And thereby we produce in the world over more no goods than goods. And that is an irony of the fate that amongst the brightest of the youth, we started declaring them as no goods. I think artificial intelligence as a technology today gives us a power to be individualizing the students once again. Today is an opportunity. I can talk from this platform and you can all listen in your languages. It's a platform today. I can decide the relative level of comprehension of each one of you and try to mold my lecture accordingly to some extent. Now that's the beauty of the technology, and my take today is appreciate the beauty of technology. Some technologies will work, some economists will work, they will make it cheaper and cheaper. They will ensure it's cheaper and cheaper, that I can guarantee you. Just as it happened in computer science.
In India, because as you mentioned, education cannot change itself as per market dynamics in real-time situation. There's always a lag, and this is something that I think is some that policymakers are grappling with today, including I think the education ministry and decision makers across the world. So we have been very good with time. I'm grateful to my panelists for keeping their remarks short.
I will only say that AI, I don't know, I have a bit of personal hesitation with the name. I personally feel it should have been called augmented intelligence rather than artificial intelligence.
We used to have a lot of courses to study that, understand. As I mentioned to you that being with technology challenge, like many who like to escape getting into that. So I thought at that time computers मेरे को नहीं टच करेंगे, मुझे क्या पढ़ने की जरूरत है, कोई और पढ़ लेगा. But today look where we are. The point I'm trying to make is that AI is the future, as Badriji also said. So there is no escape in it. Learn it and use it to the advantage. And here I'll just underline that theory of AI is not what I'm asking you to learn. Application, uses, that's going to be very important. And I know that Anne is much better qualified and she'll share what's happening in the world. If you are an engineer or even if you have done an MBA, I mean, why are white collar people all around being laid off? I think it should send you a message. Application. So if you are an engineer and you know how to use AI in your work, it puts you miles and miles ahead. That's why what I said, it's not teacher versus technology. It is teacher using the technology. So just keep that in mind. It's wonderful that we have so many young people here who are interested in listening to this. Thank you.
So if I can ask a question, we've just had the panel discussion and you've heard us all talk about the promises and the risks, the perils of AI in education. So in the context of AI in teaching children, I'm curious, how many people here are more excited about the promise? One in the back, one brave soul, three voting. How many are more worried about the risks? And in the context of training adults, doctors, engineers, how many are more excited about the promise? And how many are more worried about the risks, that we're training people for skills that are not going to be current by the time they get a job? Okay, lots of hands didn't go up, so maybe a lot of us haven't made up our mind. But it is interesting, right? Because I think a big part of the discussion of AI is about the technology as if it's advancing without people being involved. People being involved in how it's deployed, people being involved in the safety and regulations. One of the things I think is so cool about India's experience with digital society, and I will say this as an American, comparing my experience in the United States, is here in India, and again, this is from the outside looking in, so people may have different perspectives, whether it is the Aadhaar program that allows people to have access to government programs who may not be able to read, and allows, when I compare what went on during COVID in my country, in terms of getting money to people who deeply needed it, small businesses or who could not, who they're owning a restaurant or dealing in travel where their business went away, and we compare that, and frankly, the level of fraud we have in the United States versus India, and the level of verification and delivery, even to people in rural entities. I think here in India, digital tech has been very focused on the experience of people at every part of society, and then building from there, building to the digital payment system, etc. So I think here in India, you have an opportunity, given that, to really think about how, particularly with educating children, that we have what we talked about, the promise of education for children with dyslexia. I have a child with a stutter. He's now a middle-aged adult. His nightmare was being called on in class by surprise, right? Imagine a teacher who could digitally, know that this is the child who needs a different way of being asked, a different way of being challenged. So I think it's exciting to think about what's possible here because of the foundation of tech that's built, and also because as a country with so much of a technical workforce, that frankly will also be disrupted by AI. When we think about coding or tech jobs, we already see how those are changing. I think there's so much promise for a group like this to say, how do we glean the promise safely and responsibly, particularly for children, so they're growing up learning with AI, teachers have the tools of AI, but we also are ensuring that when we're teaching children, we validate against facts. Facts of history, facts of cultural traditions, which are too important to leave to the hallucination of AI and of models.
So not aging is a real situation. And as she rightly said, that there is no escape from the future. You have to go in and you have to contest and respond it. So in responding to the future, to AI as the future, we should not see it a perspective of binary opposites and also the theory of replacement. We should also see that it's going to supplement. If you see that AI-based research as a replacement of the field work, I think it will not do. It should supplement, it will supplement field work research with AI-based, interaction-based research. So it should come as a supplementary methodology, supplementary way to enhance our knowledge. As I said that you like this, India is a rural country, but it's very good in responding to technology. You must have seen in the rural areas the way people are using various kinds of the money, the system, the new system of taking and giving, purchasing and buying the things by PadhAI. So it will, India, even at the grassroots level, India will respond to the new changes. And but two things which I would like to, because this is the phase of transition, and transition always creates a dilemma. And as I said, that dilemma maybe remain a perspective for some time to dealing with this kind of technology. I read a news somewhere in the newspaper that one boy, a young boy, was interacting with the AI, and AI called him somewhere. He went there to meet AI, and he fell from there and he died. Because so that kind of thing is also, because it makes you a loner and make a case, interactive case. And in that case, if you work, so social, it should work with the social, technology with the social. Without social, technology has no meaning. Secondly, I read a newspaper, another news in the newspaper, one of the person who is heading the cyber security, the entire security network, the company is a higher position Indian person in America. I think his name is Shaurya Sharma or something. He resigned from the job and he said that technological innovation are so faster and we are not able to respond in create mechanism to control its complexity and problems. And I feel incapable and I feel helpless, and that's why I'm resigning from my job. So that kind of things are also coming while dealing with the technology for the minds who are dealing with, those who understand the delicacy. So for the popular use, we can use it, but we should be also aware the problems which will be generated by the technology. If you will not balance society with technology, I think there will be a problem. Society always controls technology of not eating the social. So social is very important, and India's strength in India is social. India is a country of society, it's not a country of the kind of political state, it's a socialist society. Here I think technology will work better. We hope that it will going to help us in making Viksit Bharat, as Professor Agarwal has said, that going to contribute a lot in achieving our goal in 2047. Thank you so much.